Today I'm going to help new players in Rise of Kingdoms learn which legendary commanders they should invest in, because I have multiple accounts. I have invested in a ton of commanders. Some are way better than others. So stick around in this video for a zero waste, highly efficient, recommended route of legendary commanders you should invest in as a new player. Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and I have played the early game in Rise of Kingdoms multiple times, and although I live in the end game, there's a lot that you can learn about what would be a great sequence of legendary commanders to invest in the early game. My goal here is to give you a list of legendaries that you invest in to maximize your punch, minimize your waste, and spend the least amount of legendary sculptures possible, so that even if you're free to play or you are in fact spending in the game, you can follow this guidance to get absolutely insane value. Now, if you think this is the sort of guidance that you're interested in, do me a huge favor, throw a like on the video and consider subscribing to the channel for daily videos about Rise of Kingdoms. I've literally made over 2,000 videos about this game dedicated to making you a better player. So thank you for honoring my commitment with a like on the video. Let's get started, baby. Here's what we're going to do in this video. First and foremost, I'm going to review every one of the commanders you could invest in, and I'll talk about why it is that you should or shouldn't invest in them. From there, I'm going to give you the list of marches you're going to make by the time you get to Season of Conquest. That's KVK Season 4. And don't worry, if you don't know what Season of Conquest is, I'll explain that in just a minute. And lastly, I'll even give you some talent builds you can use, although if you want a talent build for literally any commander in the game, you can just do a YouTube search for Chisgule and then the name of the commander, and I guarantee you I have a talent build for every single commander that should be a primary commander in Rise of Kingdoms. So let's get started, baby. And the thing we're going to talk about is first and foremost, the underlying strategy for all of this is the fact that when you get to the Season of Conquest, there is this thing called the Museum. Now, Season of Conquest is KVK Season 4 and beyond, okay? In the Museum, you can buff commanders. And if this looks insane to you, let me tell you, it is. It is an absolutely massive amount of stats, and recently the developers added the ability to double relic the commander. In other words, you can not only give them one benefit, but you can level up that benefit. So even a commander like Isong, who I was going to recommend to you anyways, is now even more insane and high value. So this is the premise and the reason why today's video is an update from the last time I made this video, which is the most popular video on the topic of here's the order of commanders that you should invest in. So that underlying principle is going to guide my recommendation to you around these different commanders that you can get access to in the early game. Now, let's go through them one by one. In the sequence, you'll be given the opportunity to work on these commanders for a new player, and let's talk about whether or not you should invest in them. So we'll start with Richard I. Now, I have this commander expertise, but you should not do this. Unless you are a big spender, you should really avoid working on Richard I, because even though he will be amazing for you in KVK Seasons 1 through 3, if you don't know what KVK is, that's Kingdom versus Kingdom. This is where you're literally battling against huge groups of other players from different servers than yourself. Richard I has an endgame role living in Canyon, but other than that, he's not that great in the open field. I use him in Canyon. This is why he's geared up, and this is why he's kitted out with insane stuff, but you should probably skip him. The first commander you should invest in will come shortly after Richard I, and that is going to be Isong. Now, Isong is a wicked commander, and I won't sing his praises in this video because he's so damn good, and I've covered that in many other places. But the thing I'll say in short is that he does huge damage, it's area of effect, and he's one of the best archers even in the very end game. And as I showed you moments ago, when you get to Season of Conquest, you'll be able to pick up some of this currency, both the exhibit coins and the relic coins, in order to drop another 20% defense and 5% skill damage onto Isong, making him an amazing long-term investment from the early game all the way to the end game, baby. So Isong is an amazing pickup. This is where literally every single player should put their sculptures and expertise Isong. In my opinion, there's no doubt about it. Every single player should make this investment. It's that freaking good in so many game modes. He defends your city. He's really good in Canyon. And most importantly, he's great in field. And that's the thing that matters the most. Because remember, commander quality in the open field is basically a multiplier for your speed ups and your resources. The better you trade in the open field, the less speed ups you use to heal, and the less resources you end up using to heal. That's really what it comes down to. I mean, you could use the most garbagey commanders in the world, but it's just going to be really expensive, okay? So Isong is a slam freaking dunk. That's where you're putting your sculptures, your universal sculptures, your precious sculptures. From there, you're going to gain access to potentially Saladin and Khan. I say potentially because Khan will be on the Wheel of Fortune, just like Isong and Richard were on the Wheel of Fortune. But Saladin will come from the Mightiest Governor. And if you are a spender and you get your access to Saladin, he is really good at 5/5, 5/1. However, Isong is the much higher priority, as is another commander I'm going to talk about. So both Saladin and Khan are a skip for most players. However, Saladin is going to be a great pickup and great invest if you are going to be spending in the game. From here, you can look at Alexander the Great and Constantine, another iconic duo. Constantine is going to be I hate to say it's unfortunately a skip for pretty much everybody, with the exception of maybe Wales. And Alexander the Great is going to be a slam dunk invest. Now, who slam dunk invests into Alexander the Great is kind of an interesting question, because although theoretically everybody would want this commander, the thing is that you're only going to have so many sculptures to work with. If you are a light spender or higher, then you probably have the sculptures to max both Isong and Alexander the Great. But if you're free to play, a good rule of thumb is that you can expertise 2 commanders per year if you're very active in the game. So most, I would say, free-to-play players or very low spenders should just focus on their Isong and maybe not expertise their Alex. Maybe take them to 5/5/1/1. That would be reasonable. And by the way, if you're like, bro, what's this 5/5 stuff you're saying? This is just referring to the skill levels on the commander. 5/5 refers to maxing the first 2 skills, taking them to 5, and the last 2 skills being 1. That's 1/1 for those 2 skills. So Alexander the Great, I used to say, was kind of like a slam dunk, Isong and Alex for everybody. But I think it's even more reasonable than ever to hoard sculptures for Season of Conquest if you wanted to do some certain investments that I'll tell you about. So your game plan so far is to definitely expertise Isong, and depending on how you're doing with sculptures and how you're doing with that project, you either invest in Alex or you skip him. Constantine comes from the Mightiest Governor. He's not a field commander in Season of Conquest. He is he's actually the best commander in Canyon in the game, but Canyon doesn't matter. It's not a multiplier for your speed ups and resources. Now from here, there's 2 more commanders we need to talk about. Edward of Skipstock and Tommy. That, by the way, that lets you know how I feel about Edward of Woodstock. Affectionately, I refer to him as Banana Helmet, okay? Banana Helmet is a big skip. He looks super cool because of his damage factor. He is not super cool. The problem is that it takes so long to fire off your active skill, your enemy will literally just walk away from you. It is not worth. You can take my word for it. Save your sculptures. Deploy them instead in Alex or Isong. Not even in Tommy. And why is that? Tommy's a weird one. Tommy is really, really good. And she's even going to be really, really good in KVK Season 3. But there's no shot that you've got the sculptures to do Isong and Alex and Tommy. And, Tommy right now is just a project that is better for really big whales. And that is largely because of this skill right over here. She's going to make the target take more skill damage. So she is going to be another commander that I think you really should skip. Also, by the time you're getting access to Tommy, you're getting really close to Season of Conquest. And at this point, you should probably try to be hoarding your sculptures so that when you get to Season of Conquest, you can make some very important early investments to get you up and running with the 3 really good marches I'm about to recommend to you. So from here, I want to talk about the Gold Key Commanders, because I'm sure you're wondering, like, wait, Chisgule, but there are commanders I get access to first, buddy. That's Gold Key Commanders, and that is VIP Commanders. So let's cover the Gold Key Commanders very briefly, and I'm only going to talk about the ones that I think you're going to be very interested in. And the ones that are extremely good in the end game, I actually can show you from the museum, because this is why. When you get to KVK Season 4 and beyond, again, that's called Season of Conquest, because of the relic system and the museum system in the game, all of your epic commanders are basically dead on arrival, because you can take a commander like Mehmed, for example. He can be 5/5, 1/1. That is a tiny amount of sculptures. You probably will get to 5/5, 1/1 just from opening your gold keys, okay? And then you add this museum buff. They don't have to be expertise to add this museum buff. So you can get another 20% health, 5% skill damage. So a 5/5, 1/1 Mehmed, unlock the relic, and if you get the second level of this relic, it's 30% health, 10% skill damage. I mean, bro, come on. Mehmed is one of those commanders you're going to be using as a part of this endgame plan that I'm talking about. Also, I'm sure you noticed Ethelflaed, by the way. You're going to work on her free-to-play. Easy choice, and she's got a great relic. When maxed, 25% attack, 15% march speed, doesn't even care about the troop type. Amazing. So of course, Ethelflaed is something that you're working on, right? But the other gold key commanders, you're probably going to skip. The only other one that, okay, like, hey, he does have some sick value is Charles Martel. And there is an alternate way you could run your marches based on what I'm going to recommend to you for your 3 marches when you get to Season of Conquest. That's KVK Season 4 and beyond. Where it's like, okay, you could use Charles if you wanted to. He does gain 35% attack and 10% health. Remember, all you have to do is get him to 5/5, 1/1. That's maxing the first 2 skills. And you add on this bad boy over here, and the commander's in a really, really, really good spot. The reason that I'm not going to recommend all the other gold key commanders is that although they are better than ever, the 3 that I've sort of recommended to you here, the Ethelflaed, the Mehmed, and also the Charles Martel, are your better gold key commanders. And look, if you were whaling and you had lots of this expedition currency and relic coins, yeah, I mean, like, even Caesar is like really good now. Like, all of these commanders hold a lot more value than they ever did. However, there's another reality here, which is that this currency to unlock these museum buffs is not unlimited, especially for free to play. So you're only going to be able to do so many of these commanders. So while on the one hand, I could give you a full lineup, leveraging all these gold key commanders, you're still even going to have to pick and choose because your currencies here are going to be limited. This brings us, by the way, to the VIP commanders, Minamoto and also Hannibal Barca. And I have great news for you. If you were going to spend on Minamoto, I have to say, he is now amazing in the end game. I actually am not mincing words. He is amazing. He's one of the top cavalry open field commanders. I'd say he's top 6 in the end game, which is insane because you can get him from VIP starting on day 1 if you wanted to. So if you're going to spend for Minamoto, you want to do that very, very, very early so that you can just enjoy the benefit in all your early KVKs, sail into the end game, and keep using Minamoto in the end game. And I think that is an extremely viable strategy. It's actually shocking how viable that is at the time of this recording. Hannibal Barca, on the other hand, is probably a big ol' skipperoo. There's a lot of reasons why Hannibal Barca just doesn't make the cut. I've covered that in other tier lists and videos, so I won't elaborate on that here. I'll simply say that even with this museum buff, which is strong, 40% attack, 10% normal attack damage taken reduction, I don't think he makes the cut for an end game setup, whereas Minamoto can. So from here, finally, you've made it to the point where I can tell you what the game plan is. You worked on your Esong, you maybe worked on your Alex, and then you hoarded. What do you end up with? I want to give you 3 killer marches. One is going to be archers, one's going to be infantry, one is going to be cavalry. This configuration is really important to understand. You want to invest in different troop types because you're going to be getting armaments randomly benefiting different troop types. So you're going to pick one formation. I would recommend wedge for open field. And then you want armaments for infantry, armaments for archers, armaments for cavalry to all be a win when you get them. So I would recommend, again, one of each troop type. And here's what you're going to do. You're going to take Boudica. You're going to take her to 5511. She's available in the Wheel of Fortune. This is your very first project, and this will activate your E-Song. It's going to give E-Song a wicked endgame meta home. Boudica E-Song. Now, at the time of this recording, we may not be far away from new archers coming into the game, and it's possible that the new archer would replace the Boudica. But either way, you're going to use Boudica or new archer paired with E-Song, and that is so damn good. Amazing, amazing pair. And again, Boudica at 5, 1 point over here in the skill, 1 point over here is your starting point. My goal again is to get 3 marches up and running right away for your very first season of Conquest KVK at a minimum. Now from here, you're going to need sculptures to do either Nevsky or Joan, or if you spent, your primary commander is going to be Minamoto. So again, it's either Nevsky or Joan Prime or Minamoto if you were spending. The difference between Nevsky and Joan is really interesting, and I want to talk about this for a minute. Nevsky is widely regarded as the best cavalry commander, and in my opinion, he's the number 2 open field commander probably in the game. However, it's actually shocking how good a 5-5, or rather, in this case, it will be a 5-1-1-5 Joan of Arc actually is. Now, I actually swapped in Joan of Arc to my endgame murder ball at like, I don't know, I had her at like 5-3-2-1. I mean, literally like 5-3-2 and then 1. And she was indistinguishable from the other endgame cavalry I was using. She's that good, even when she's not expertise. She is, strangely enough, a commander that only gets slightly better when she gets expertise. And there are commanders that work this way in the game. The majority of their punch they get already from their skills, and the expertise barely does anything for some of the commanders. Joan of Arc is one of those commanders. So there is an argument to be made that the Joan of Arc Prime could be better than the Nevsky. And either way, I think you'll be extremely happy with whichever route you go. Joan of Arc is giving you buffs to your 3 marches. She's honestly like perfect for this situation, but Nevsky is also absolutely insane. Now, again, people are going to be like, but Chisgule, Nevsky is the better investment. Okay, but also remember, a brand new player to Season of Conquest is not expertising Nevsky anytime soon. You're going to leave it at 5-5-1-1 for a really long time because Boudica might end up being a higher priority for you because the other commander I'm going to recommend might be a higher priority for you, and you're just not going to have that many sculptures. So the commander you're going to pair with either your Nevsky or your Joan or your Minamoto, if you were spending as the primary commander, is going to be Mehmed, okay? And Mehmed is awesome. He's going to give you that health benefit, that skill damage boost I was talking about. He's got area of effect damage. He's also got attack and more skill damage boost over here. He is going to be great with your Nevsky or your Joan or your Minamoto. One of those commanders will serve as the primary. Again, if you expertised your Minamoto, then you can save some sculptures. And theoretically, even if you don't expertise your Minamoto, you could use an unexpertised Minamoto. The only problem is that eventually you either are going to spend money to get his sculptures or not. Like, you can't use universals on Minamoto. He is the cheapest legendary, but it's still like $200+ to go and expertise him. So you could use a non-expertise Minamoto. However, eventually that's something that you'll probably replace. But even if you don't, I mean, you'd use Minamoto forever, basically, for Barb Forts. So that's your Cav March. So you have your Archer March, you got your Cav March. Now I got to get you an Infantry March. And what you do here depends a little bit on whether or not you maxed Alexander the Great. But the commander I'm going to get you to for your infantry is, of course, going to be Skippy Prime. Skippy Prime is absolutely insane. He's right over here. Big area of effect damage. Amazing skills. Take him to 5-5-1-1 to start, and you're in just an amazing spot. You're going to use Alexander the Great as the secondary if you did that. If you did not, great news. You've got free-to-play Ethelfled, who you can add into the mix here. Ethelfled is just such a good commander, absolutely crucial. You're going to use her as the secondary, and that gives you Skippy with Ethel. Amazing. So your 3 marches, if you're free to play or spending just very little in the game at all, is going to be Boudica with Esong. It's going to be Nevsky with a 5/5, 1/1 Mehmed that you got purely from gold keys. No universals on the Mehmed. You got too many other projects where you want to use those. And again, that's either Nevsky or Joan or Minamoto with your Mehmed. And then it's going to be Skippy with Ethel. Boom. 3 great marches. Your priority would be, in my opinion, to expertise either Skippy Prime or Boudica. The last one you would do is your Cav commander, especially if you picked Joan, because she barely gets... I mean, she does get better when you expertise her, but, like, she's got so much upfront punch that, like, you can just leave her at that 115 for a long time. Now, before I get too far along with showing you what to do to get to 4 marches or 5 marches, I wanted to bring this conversation into Tier Maker, because we're not going to look as much at the commander's skills anymore. We're going to talk more about how you pair them together, and I think it's really helpful to visually see these are the pairs that I'm recommending to you. And there's already a couple things that we can talk about. First of all, I've got Nevsky in there, but as I mentioned, you could use Joan. That was Cleo. What the heck? Hello, Joan. Okay. You could do it like that with Joan. Okay. You could do it with Minamoto. I think that would also be a fine choice. If you had the Minamoto, you'd skip the Cav commander for now because Mina's so good. And you could use Mehmed. You could also flip these around if you wanted. There's sort of pros and cons to moving these things around. But that would be my recommendation for just your first set of marches. Again, Minamoto could save you some sculptures, let you focus on your Boudica and your Skippy, if in fact you had spent money on Minamoto. But I think this is just a really killer 3-march starting point. From here, we want to add in a 4th march. What do we want that 4th march to be? Well, I think it's going to be cavalry, because I've already mentioned that they're so damn strong. And even if you hadn't expertise to your Minamoto, you could use him unmaxed, pop those relics onto there, and he's going to do really good. So even if you don't max him, he probably ends up in the mix. Either Nevsky or Joan, you're going to pair over here. And in order to really make this possible, I'm going to assume you're a higher spender, so you picked up Alexander the Great. And if you picked up Alexander the Great, you're going to use Skippy with Alex. That's Scipio Prime. And then you've got the option of either Nevsky with Ethelfled, or you could do Joan with Ethelfled. And that would be a really killer 4-march setup. So if you picked up the Alex, you have the option to go to more marches. If you're going more marches, again, I think it's cavalry. I think this configuration is really good. You, again, have the option to switch some things around if you wanted to. I think it would be perfectly reasonable to run it like this instead if you wanted. From here, now I want to get you to 5 marches. And this is where, if you were spending and you already had your Saladin, then you'd want him to be in the mix for sure. And the way that you would run this is Saladin with Ethelfled. It's a great combo, but let me tell you something about Saladin, okay? If you don't already have sculptures in him by the time you get to Season of Conquest, you don't want to put sculptures in him. You'd rather have a different cavalry commander. So this is the sort of thing you do only if you've already got Saladin before getting to Season of Conquest. That's KVK Season 4 and beyond. So here is the 5 marches you would run if what you wanted to do was to take advantage of the fact that you already had that Saladin. It's 3 cavalry marches. I think 3 cavalry marches is a fine way to configure. And this looks really, really damn good, man. I mean, for just getting to KVK Season 4, yeah, these commanders are not expertised. Your Saladin's probably not expertised. Your Joan is not going to be expertised. You're minimizing your sculptures in Skippy and Nevsky and Boudica. But still, it gives you 5 marches that are going to punch really hard. The final thing I want to emphasize is that, again, Saladin is like not a commander you want to put sculptures into compared to, for example, William. If you were putting sculptures in and you didn't have a Saladin, what would you do with William instead? Well, you certainly wouldn't run it like that. What you'd probably do is you'd bring the William all the way up with the Nevsky, and you could run Minamoto with Ethelfled, or you could run it like this: Nevsky Ethel, with Mina William. Look, this is not a perfect endgame arrangement. I've talked about that in other videos, but this is a great entry point for Season of Conquest. It does overemphasize Cav slightly, but I think this visualization really helps hit home exactly what these combos should be. Now, one other consideration I'll add, if we peel way back for a moment, is that, you know, early on I mentioned, hey, you could do like this Skippy Ethel, and then also you had Nevsky and you paired with Mehmed, right? Something like this. One other consideration is that you could use Charles Martel. The way you'd run that is Charles Skippy. The thing is that then you're benching your Ethelfled, which just like, I don't know, it feels like a weird choice to bench your Ethelfled. She's really, really good. This might technically be stronger, but the downfall of this configuration is that you don't have enough relic coins to actually max the relic on maybe Minamoto, also Mehmed, also Charles Martel. Like, it's just a lot of relics to do, okay? I get that Ethel also has a relic, and that's something I'm recommending that you work on. But I think that probably having the Ethelfled in here is a stronger configuration because her area of effect damage is really good. I've covered that in other videos. I'll have a card up in the top if you want to see that in depth. I know I've given you a ton of information, but let me just go over for you the talents you would use on these commanders. If you want more information about these talents, I'd recommend just pausing the videos if you want to copy this particular build. These are the best builds. And these are all slam dunk builds. But if you want the details on like why it is that I've made these choices, you can do that search on YouTube, Chisgule plus the name of the commander, and you'll find just a bounty of information about why those choices were made. Here's the build for your Nevsky, if this is what you want to do. You could also use this build on your Minamoto, by the way, for the open field. And let me get you a Skippy Prime build here. I love Skippy Prime, man. Such a good commander. Here you go. Bada boom. Talents for the Skippy Prime. And last but not least, well, we could actually give you the Joan Prime talent if you're going to use her. Here are those talents. I love the support tree. It's really good. And from here, well, actually, this could be the same that you do on your Saladin. And again, all of these points are extremely purposeful. So if you're wondering, like, why did you do 2 out of 3 here? I have videos dedicated to explaining that to you. If you're looking for more information about legendary commander investments, I'm going to have 2 cards in the end screen that I think are really valuable for you. One video I'm going to recommend to you is going to be the legendary investment tier list, explaining why it is a commander is a good investment. The other video I'll link to you, and it's a little bit dated, but still really valuable, is my very best 5/5, 5/1 commanders and why they're there and why they're so good. These are commanders that are high leverage, that are not expertise. And this will give you more information around why it is that commanders like, you know, William are just so damn good.